Hey everyone, my name is Dave Nixon and welcome to another episode of the Peak and Flow podcast. Today I'm actually filming from my hotel room in Kiama. So I'm here, I've taken a week off, mostly to actually, yes, a bit of recharging, a bit of refreshing, but also to get some writing done. So I've got about 17,000 words down for my next manuscript and it needs to be about 70. So during my period here, I aim to double that at the very least. But on top of that, get a chance to review some business systems, review some business goals, and refresh my focus, so to speak. So I've done the best I can with all the lighting for those of you watching. However, what I'm going to be talking to today, which is actually kind of something that I have to focus on while I'm here, because getting things done is actually not something that comes supernatural to me. It's as silly as it sounds. I can look back on my life and recognize that I've definitely done things and achieved things. However, it is far easier for me to sit back and think about my thoughts and pull my thoughts apart and be really considered and sit in the subjective space. It's stuff that I've spoken to multiple times before, but I find it significantly easier doing that than just doing work for work's sake, where I can kind of get a little bit paralyzed from time to time. So where this actually comes from in today's subject as well is during a period in my life, during my 20s, where I really struggled big time. I was house sitting at the time, so I wasn't houseless, I was homeless. But some of those nights I slept at the gym, I slept in my car. And during this stage, I think if I saw a doctor, I would have been diagnosed with depression. I never saw a doctor. And a couple of those days, weeks, months, years during my mid-20s and late 20s were exceptionally challenging in many ways. And I commonly felt like paralyzed with just how much of a hole I was in, commercially, financially, emotionally, with my relationships, even with my physical fitness. And there were times where it was just like I just couldn't do anything. And I remember sitting on the gym floor, a lot of times laying on the gym floor. So I still owned the gym, but it was worth negative because I owed money. And it was a really low period of my time. I'm obviously reflecting on it and going back there now. But one thing that really got me out of the hole, and to this day is still an exceptionally beneficial approach, was to do one thing. It sounds so obvious and simple, but feeling overwhelmed, feeling like there's too many things to do to even get back to zero, let alone ahead, right? Feeling like, what's the point? Why even do this? Is it even going to work out? Low on motivation, low on money, low on hope, low on everything. And the interesting thing with all of that was how much at that time in my life, how much my experience was global in nature. And it was because everything was really hard, literally in that sentence, everything was really hard. And that was my experience. So what I was able to do was to literally go, okay, if there was one thing that I could do today, what could that one thing be? Some days it was shaving. That's when I was probably clearly I haven't done that recently, but that was at a really low stage of my life. And I didn't have a beard at that point, so it was just a scraggly little bum fluff on my face. But that might have been the one thing that I did that day. There was other days where it was something to do with the business or the finances or whatever the case might be, where it was actually I had to stretch myself or learn something new. But it was one thing. If I did one thing today that made today successful, what could that thing be? And it wasn't always about moving forward and getting ahead. It wasn't that. It was just getting going that I was after. And I knew that if I did one thing a day, even if it was only 5 days a week, but let's say it's 7, if it's 5 days a week, it's 250 things a year, but it would be 365 things over the space of a year. I knew that if I just did one thing a day, that nudge the needle towards a better life. If I just did one thing. I understand how simple this is. I understand how many people would be like, this isn't a beneficial podcast or comment. But over the years and years and years, that one thing builds on itself. It's like laying a stick, right? Or a brick is probably a better analogy. If you just lay one brick, then after 365 days, you don't have one brick. You have 365 bricks. I know, once again, that sounds so oversimplistic, but it's really important, because 365 bricks is 365 bricks closer to a home. And so if you're in a space where you are struggling, or someone you know is really struggling, and you're down on hope, you're down on motivation, passion, love, energy, all of those things, it will turn around. You just have to get yourself out of it. And you can do it one thing at a time. And no one has to judge you on that thing, including yourself. It can just be one thing, and you get to choose. But remember that one thing is actually how we build momentum. But here's the key kicker. You have to do it. You actually have to do the one thing. And when you do the one thing, you start to build momentum. You start to build energy towards something that is going to give you a more fulfilled and worthwhile living life. What's really important with this is motivation occurs once you're moving, not before. That's a really important point. Motivation does not occur before you start taking action. Motivation occurs during action. So I'm going to leave it with this story. There's this analogy that, and I give it very often as well, but if you drive past someone and they're pulled over on the side of the road, you may not pull over to check on them and help them out, or whatever the case might be, right? They could be on the phone, they could be doing whatever, they could need help, who knows? But if you drive past someone who's pushing their car, the chances of getting out and helping that person are significantly higher. And so what I encourage you to do, if you're in a hole, if your car's broken down, get out and push. It'll be the hardest thing to do in the beginning, but people want to help people that are helping themselves. And on that note, team, I'm done. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this podcast, it'd mean the world to me if you'd pass it to someone else that you think would also enjoy this podcast. You can find out about all of our retreat dates and event dates in the show notes. You can grab a copy of my book, Minding Yourself, from the show notes as well. Otherwise, that's me. Done. I am out. Until next time, peace and pizza. I'll see you soon.